Yeah. Oh, yes. There's never a movie.
All right, good morning, everyone. This meeting is called to order. Mr. Trobman, has anyone signed up for public comment?
Good morning, Commissioners. Celeste Trumman, General Counsel. We have no one sign up for general comments. We have folks who are here to speak on a particular couple of items, and when we get to those items, we'll bring them on up.
Thank you. All right, let's take up agenda item 3. This is high demand, high wage occupations report.
Something there. Good morning, Chair Daniel, Commissioner Demerson, Mr. Cerna. For the record, my name is Mariana Vega. I'm the Director for the Labor Market Information Department at the Texas Workforce Commission. And today, for your consideration and possible action, you have before you the annual report on growth occupations to the Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and Legislature regarding projected shortages and high wage, high demand occupations in high wage, high demand occupations. Your offices did receive a copy of the report, and we briefed the offices as well. For this report, we did examine over 800 jobs, and we did segment them by the 13 industry sectors as specified in Texas Labor Code 302. And we did categorize the high wage, high demand jobs as those occupations that have an annual salary or an annual median salary that is estimated to be more than the statewide median salary, which is currently for year 2021, $39,000 and $39,030 a year. And also with an expected employment change greater or equal to 400 jobs. To produce this report, we did use various BLS data sets that include the quarterly census of employment and wages, as well as current employment estimates to show how employment has changed over time as well and up to the current employment situation. We also looked at or brought in long-term projections for the period of 2020 to 2030, which is a 10-year period, to provide a list of occupations expected to be most in demand for that time period. Additionally, for each of those occupations, we did provide BLS education assignments, as well as STEM and apprenticeship designations, and also top skills and certifications that are currently being requested by employers. New to this year, we did include location quotient to provide insight into the occupational concentration for each of those occupations. So today we are asking for your approval of the report and also permission to make minor non-substantive changes as we prepare the final layout that we will publish on our website. That does conclude my remarks. I do thank you for your consideration, and if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those.
Any comments or questions?
A good report, and I love the fact that the location quotient that you guys are using, that's a neat tool. And I encourage you to share this report, if approved, with the industry associations as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me compliment you on the report. I know it's an annual report, but you continue to refine this in ways that I think make it increasingly useful. I think to employers that TWC interacts with, in addition to people who may want to be working in these fields, particularly students who are preparing for those fields. I particularly appreciate what you've done in going in there and designating things that can be done through apprenticeships, through internships, through other kind of alternative forms of education. And I think as we continue to strengthen also the different types of certification that employers use, I think that theme moving forward will continue to strengthen the report. I also appreciate particularly the way you've delineated degrees that might be required versus middle skills types jobs that might be appropriate. I think we give people lots of paths into what appears, I mean, just on the surface, and if you dig into the numbers, you'll find that it's even more so, to be some real opportunities for future employment. So, I mean, it's a good report. It's one of those reports that we could just simply churn out a list of numbers, but I think we've chosen here to prepare something that I think is very useful. And I hope that community colleges, high school teachers, even university faculty will use this in helping them align the things that they're doing as we look toward the future workforce.
Thank
So
you
just-
very much. Or I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to thank you for your comments. I will pass those on to my staff. Special thanks to the Economic Analysis Unit in the Labor Market Information Department. They did prepare this report, so very appreciative of them.
Thank you. So,
So,
Mr. Chairman.
yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and move on this motion. I move that we approve the 2022 report on Texas growth occupations for submission to the governor, lieutenant governor, and legislature as recommended today by staff.
I'm going to second it. It's approved.
Okay.
Thank you. This is agenda item 4. This is final rules for chapter 815, TAC chapter 815.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mr. Cerna. For the record, I'm Chuck Ross, Director of TWC's Fraud Deterrence and Compliance Monitoring Division. Before you today are final rule amendments to Chapter 815, Unemployment Insurance, related to collection of UI debt through notices of assessment. In 2021, the 87th Texas Legislature enacted Senate Bill 695, a commission legislative initiative which provides TWC greater flexibility to serve notices of assessment, including service by personal delivery or mail and service through substituted service. These rules implement and interpret the authority that the legislature granted TWC in this regard. The proposed rules were published in the Texas Register for a 30-day public comment period, which ended on September 12th, 2022. One commenter submitted comments. Staff carefully considered those comments and declined to make any changes to the proposed rules as published in the Texas Register. Additionally, the United States Department of Labor provided notice to the agency that the rules conform to federal unemployment compensation law. This morning, staff are recommending final adoption of these Chapter 815 amendments. If adopted, staff are also requesting approval to make any minor non-substantive changes to the rules document to comport with publication requirements of the Texas Register. I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Let's you give me pressing questions for
No.
I think we have a public commenter here, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, sir, we do. Mr. Mauch, if you go ahead and introduce yourself and begin.
Chuck.
Thank you. My name's Dave Mock. I'm an attorney with Texas Rio Grande Legal Aid, and I want to talk about the impact these regulations will have on poor and working Texans. That starts with an understanding of the large amount of erroneous and unlawful overpayments within the unemployment system today. During the pandemic, when charged with administering an alphabet soup of new unemployment programs, each with their own administrative and bureaucratic hurdles for claimants, unfortunately, not every claimant was given a fair shot to comply with those administrative requirements. Our agency has handled hundreds of cases over the past couple of years, and one thing we see over and over and over again is that claimants weren't aware of administrative requirements for pandemic unemployment programs, nor were they given adequate opportunity by the TWC to meet those requirements. Notices sent to claimants did not include information about what they needed to do on their claims to show that they were eligible, how to get that information to the TWC, and what the consequences were for failing to meet those administrative hurdles. Furthermore, when claimants got notices of overpayments, those notices by and large did not tell claimants why they had overpayments or what they could do to clear those overpayments out. Thus, we worry that any additional aggressive collection actions undertaken by the agency would exacerbate existing due process issues within the unemployment system. Second, I want to talk about the bevy of due process concerns raised by these proposed regulations. These are supposed to be rules that give the agency and people like me who advise unemployment claimants some guidance on what the rules are for determining service of process for these notices of assessment. They're anything but. The rules are broad, they are vague, and they give TWC officials a blank check to serve process in any manner that they see fit, unfortunately. The real concern here is that there is no honoring this except for in the breach. If someone is served allegedly with a notice of assessment in a way that doesn't give them adequate notice, the reality is that they have no way to challenge it until money has already been taken out of their bank account through the assessment. Third and finally, I would urge the commission and the board to consider the real human impact of these regulations on the working poor. 2 weeks ago at the agency's board meeting, y'all discussed a policy proposal regarding potential use of bank levies to enforce overpayments related to fraud. The agency and the commissioners were unanimous in agreeing that any such universe in which a bank levy existed as a method of enforcement needed also to contain some safeguards to ensure that working Texans did not have so much money taken away from these bank levies that they were unable to pay their rent or to provide food for their families. The assessment regulations that the agency proposes today contain no such safeguards. And as someone who's personally worked with many unemployment claimants over the past couple of years, I've seen more and more people in more and more precarious situations. And unfortunately, the regulations as worded doubtless will make more people homeless and drive more people to the streets. I thank the agency for the ability to comment. I would urge the commissioners to engage with the written comments, which are more in depth than what I was able to provide today. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Chuck, this is a very last resort, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes, sir, correct.
Thank you.
I have no further questions. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the adoption of amendments to 40 Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 815, Subchapter H, Collection Action, as recommended today by staff.
I second the motion and it's approved.
Thank you, commissioners. Have a good holiday.
Thank you. This is agenda item 5, capital exceptional item and rider request.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Demerson, Mr. Cerna. For the record, Chris Nelson, Chief Financial Officer. On August 23rd, the commission approved TWC's legislative appropriation request for the 88th legislative session, including capital projects and rider revisions. Since then, TWC has applied for a preschool development grant, or PDG. TWC expects to be notified soon whether it will be awarded this grant. In the event TWC is awarded the PDG grant, TWC will need capital budget authority to develop an eligibility screener application that will be housed on TWC's early childhood website. The capital budget authority needed would be $5 million. TWC would also need a revision to its rider authorizing travel reimbursements for advisory committees. In its PDG grant application, TWC proposes to reimburse up to $15,000 of travel expenses for the Texas Early Learning Council to attend 4 in-person meetings to discuss and develop their Texas Early Learning strategic plan. At this time, I'm seeking commission approval to submit these additions to the Legislative Budget Board in hopes that they may be added to items previously submitted in our LAR and incorporated into the General Appropriations Act. That concludes my comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions?
None for me.
Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the additional capital exceptional item and the rider request as set forth in the commission meeting materials and presented here today.
Second the motion and it's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is agenda item 6, work-based learning strategic framework.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Demerson, and Mr. Cerna. For the record, Carrie Ballast, Workforce Development Division. House Bill 1247 of the 87th Texas Legislature regular session requires Texas Workforce Commission, Texas Education Agency, and the Texas Higher Ed Coordinating Board, acting as the tri-agency, to develop and report on a work-based learning strategic framework. Today, staff seek commission approval of the report for submission to the Texas Legislature by December 31 of this year. Before submitting, staff will apply minor non-substantive edits to ensure a clean, grammatically correct report.
Any comments or questions?
None here.
So I read this report in its entirety. And I've got to say, it is a standard issue, dry government report. But buried in this report are a number of nuggets that really lay out a clear path for how state agencies and their corresponding constituencies can really, I think, find some expansion for work-based learning beyond some things that we're already doing, and I think fairly well. And so I would encourage you, I think this report's about to get passed out of here so it can move on to the people that need to get it. But I would encourage you to get with the communications team
Mhm.
and pull out some of the key elements that I think really present a clear path and have those available for both the tri-agency partners and TWC to use when we're talking to people about work-based learning and some things like that. I think there's some real gems in here. I think you guys really uncovered some good stuff, and I want to make sure that it doesn't just sit in this report on the shelf that it ends up on once everybody's had a chance to read it. I want to kind of turn some things actionable. So it's good stuff. We have to free it from the 45 pages that it's sitting in so that we can really get the one page of really actionable items that people can get behind and do something with, that we're able to get that out there.
I like that.
there a
Thank you,
motion?
sir.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the work-based strategic framework for submission to the Texas Legislature as recommended today by staff.
I second the motion and it passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna take a brief recess right here. We've got a number of public commenters coming up. For the next one, I want to make sure that the ones who are on the line and everybody's ready to go. So we'll take a real short recess here. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, let's come back into session. This is, we'll take up agenda item 7, strategic plan for the child care workforce.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioner Demerson, and Mr. Cerna. For the record, Allison Wilson with the Child Care and Early Learning Division. House Bill 619 passed during the 87th Legislature regular session, amended the Labor Code to require TWC to prepare a child care workforce strategic plan to improve the quality of the infant, toddler, preschool, and school-aged child care workforce in Texas, and to update the strategic plan every 3 years. TWC must submit the plan to the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives no later than December 31st. To support the development of the plan, HB 619 requires the collection of demographic and workforce data from a representative sample of childcare facilities in the state. TWC partnered with the LBJ School and the PN3 Policy Impact Center to conduct a survey of childcare center directors and home-based directors as well. They developed a statistically valid sample from more than 3,000 licensed and regulated childcare programs from across the state, and over 750 responded to that survey. House Bill 619 also requires that a work group composed of childcare providers, childcare workers, and community stakeholders assist in the development of the plan. UT and the PN3 Center also facilitated meetings of the work group to gather feedback on the data collected and inform the development of recommendations. The plan before you today includes goals and action items across 3 different goal areas. These goal areas reflect areas staff identified as actionable by TWC. The first one is to support the current childcare workforce. The second is to support a pipeline of qualified childcare workers. And the third is to examine opportunities to improve administration and oversight of the childcare services program. I would like to highlight a couple of aspects of the plan. Firstly, I wanted to note that many of the action items identified in the plan anticipate Texas being awarded the federal preschool development grant, Birth to 5 grant. This funding will support multiple collaborative interagency efforts, including many designed to positively impact the quality of the childcare workforce in Texas. We expect to be notified on that grant this week or next. Additionally, the plan has many actions tied to the Texas Early Childhood Professional Development System, and I would like to highlight that the Commission has recently approved initiatives to further support and grow the improvement of tech peds. PDG funds and action items identified in the strategic plan will also lend cross-system support to help ensure tech peds continues to be useful and relevant. Lastly, I want to acknowledge the time, energy, and dedication that our House Bill 619 work group members contributed to this process. Their high level of engagement and thoughtful contributions are much appreciated. In closing, staff seeks direction on approval of the Child Care Workforce Strategic Plan for submission to the Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and Speaker of the House, including authority to make non-substantive technical revisions to the plan prior to submission.
All right, thank you. We'll come back with comments and questions. We have a number of public commenters. I'd like to get everything they have to say kind of on the record before we take this up completely.
Commissioners, we have several folks in attendance and also in attendance virtually. And so we'll take those who are up here in the room first. When I call your name, if you can come on up and introduce yourself and who you represent, and go ahead, proceed. Melanie Rubin.
Good morning. I am Melanie Rubin, Director of the North Texas Early Education Alliance, and I want to thank you, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Demerson, and Mr. Cerna for all you and the Child Care and Early Learning Division has done and is doing. The initiatives and efforts that the Early Learning Division have implemented have been timely, tactical, and right on target. The childcare system, particularly its most essential component, the childcare workforce, is literally in crisis. Due to low wages and virtually no benefits, childcare programs cannot find, recruit, or retain qualified staff. Providers are maxed out, parents are maxed out, and employers are losing their workforce because their employees can't find childcare. Even those who do find childcare are struggling with the instability of the current system. In fact, an overwhelming 86% of primary caregivers said problems with childcare hurt their efforts or time commitment at work. For employers, insufficient childcare results in reductions in revenue and increased hiring costs. The Texas childcare crisis for infants and toddlers alone, for example, is costing Texas $4.9 billion annually in lost earnings, productivity, and revenue. HB 619 was passed by the legislature in recognition of the dire staffing challenges and the necessity of building a strong childcare workforce to support working parents. The mandated strategic plan was intended to address the market failure of the childcare system and the resulting childcare workforce crisis by creating a sustainable plan with meaningful strategies to ensure the childcare workforce could be stabilized and well supported. The stakeholder recommendations presented to TWC in the report prepared by the Prenatal to 3 Policy Impact Center recognize the value of Texas early learning teachers, the need to stabilize the industry, and the essential services they provide to our workforce and to our children. The proposed childcare workforce strategic plan developed by TWC in response to these recommendations outlined in the stakeholder report offers good insight into the current realities and does acknowledge the need for additional resources. However, it does not adequately align with the intentions of HB 619, nor will it fully accomplish the goals of the bill. HB 619 mandated that the plan include a variety of recommendations, which by their nature would require multiple state agencies and additional resources for the legislature to implement. The limited scope of TWC's proposed strategic plan only accounts for what the agency believes it has the authority and resources to implement and does not address all the charges in the bill. It is not TWC's responsibility to implement all components of a statewide plan, but because of TWC's unique expertise in employment and employment supports, specifically childcare, we do believe and hope that it's TWC's responsibility to make more comprehensive recommendations contingent on the state acquiring additional funds and other entities' involvement. We respectfully ask the agency to seize the charge given to it by the legislature through HB 619 and incorporate recommendations that will more meaningfully address the critical and urgent needs of the childcare system. We hope that the agency will include more of the stakeholder recommendations in the strategic plan, especially those related to fixing the flawed financing mechanism of our childcare system and those related to significantly increasing teacher compensation. Putting forth a stronger, comprehensive, and forward-thinking strategic plan will meet both the mandate of HB 619 and will adhere to TWC's mission to promote and support a workforce system that creates value and offers employers, families, individuals, and communities the opportunity to achieve and sustain economic prosperity. Thank you.
Kim Coffran.
Good morning. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chairman Daniels and Commissioner Demerson and Mr. Cerna for having us here this morning and for your continued work around high quality childcare and working families. My name is Kim Coffran. I'm currently the Senior Director of Education for Children at Risk and had the privilege of being a member of this HB 619 work group. We want to thank you and the entire childcare and early learning staff for the development of the strategic plan. And of all the state agencies that touch early childhood, Texas Workforce Commission is one of the agencies that best understands the breadth and the scope of the complex issues that face the childcare businesses and the families and the employers who depend on this vital industry. As you know, the childcare industry was at a breaking point well before the pandemic. The strategic plan points out how families can't afford to pay any more and educators can't afford to make any less. And while the strategic plan addresses many of the requirements of HB 619, there are several recommendations that the work group made that are not included in the plan, as well as aspects of the bill, the charge of the bill that was currently the plan does not address. HB 619 asks for recommendations for increasing compensation and reducing turnover. The strategic plan does name 2 programs that are currently happening to support compensation and retention at local levels. However, action item 1.2.1 of the strategic plan only states it will identify and provide information on workforce board initiatives to support the early childhood education workforce, including those providing wage supports. It does not say to require or even consider or recommend that workforce boards use their dollars to support compensation or retention, nor is there a request for additional funding to implement compensation or retention efforts. Without a statewide program, we will continue to see disparities and inconsistencies across the state, therefore increasing the lack of affordable quality childcare choices for families. We applaud the recommendations around building a pipeline for early childhood educators through high school programs and CDA programs. However, if there is not a career with a self-sustaining wage at the end of that pipeline, we are building a pipeline to nowhere. We appreciate that TWC is well aware of this. In fact, the strategic plan points out that school districts consider expected compensation when selecting which programs to offer as part of their CTE programs, and students use compensation to choose their pathways. We truly want a pipeline. We as a state must directly face the compensation issues. Finally, with regard to the charge laid out of HB 619, asking for recommendations for eliminating pay disparities in the childcare workforce, there are no specific recommendations listed in the work plan. We would like to request the commissioner reconsider including the work group recommendations to address this issue. The work group recommends providing retention bonuses directly to educators to support this charge. The childcare industry is functioning in a broken market, one that is failing families, children, early childhood workforce, and the entire economy. If we don't invest in our educators now, not only will the providers you will hear from today suffer, but the entire economy will suffer as well. Thank you for your time.
Melissa Hoisington.
Good morning. My name is Melissa Hoisington, and I've been working in the childcare industry since 2001. I've owned my own Primrose school in the DFW area for 10 years. I've served on the Texas Early Learning Council since 2019, and I was a participant in the strategic plan work group. 4 years ago, I was burned out and ready to sell my school to someone who had more to give back than I thought I had left. Financially, we were struggling to make ends meet with a 20-year-old building that was in dire need of a facelift, tuition rates set as high as we could reasonably go, teacher pay rates stretched as far as our budget could take us, with no reasonable opportunity to acquire additional capital to comfortably operate and not be so cash strapped. I will apply for my last Texas workforce check here in a couple of months, and I am truly terrified about what's ahead when that money has been depleted. The plan that was published on Friday will not adequately meet the workforce needs of the industry, and the effects will not easily be undone for years to come. We must implement a meaningful strategic plan to address the workforce issues we are all facing. The first 5 years are the most critical in a child's development and could literally save society billions upon billions of dollars if we invested more into these children when our dollars would go the farthest. Earlier this year, my school had to scramble to implement aggressive and historical tuition increases while using the bulk of our state grants to increase the wages of our staff to stay competitive. Our workforce pool competes with businesses like Chick-fil-A, Amazon, Buc-ee's, Target, and the like. The difference in an employee that could work for my school or for Amazon is that we expect much more from them, and their roles are critical to the safety and welfare of the children entrusted to our care. When those other businesses cannot stay fully staffed, it is not that noticeable to the general public. When we cannot stay fully staffed, we cannot legally or safely operate in the way our families need and deserve. This was a dire situation, and without the assistance of the state, many of us would not have made it. Unless I want to cut staff wages across the board by the summer, I will have to raise my tuition rates at least 8 to 10% in every classroom just to make ends meet and sustain those wage increases from earlier this year. The families at my school near Denton are hardworking middle-class Texans who earn too much for childcare assistance, but can only devote so much of their modest income to childcare costs. They will have two options. One parent leaves the workforce, as we've already seen happen during the pandemic, or they look for lower quality and often unregulated care options. Competitive staff pay isn't the only issue we're facing. Many of us are losing students to public pre-K programs and are desperately working to figure out a solution to that problem that is taking away any financial cushion we may have had in the past to weather a storm like this. I'm attempting to offer as many benefits as I can, but those will also have to be reevaluated once the money runs out. I hope that TWC will broaden the scope of the strategic plan in ways that will actually stabilize the workforce and keep the economy strong. In 2 days, I will be signing my next 10-year franchise agreement with Primrose because I'm not done ensuring that I've left the childcare industry in Texas better than I found it 20 years ago. Thank you for your time.
Cody Somerville.
Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Demerson, and Mr. Serna. My name is Cody Somerville. I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Association for the Education of Young Children. We're the state's largest membership association for early childhood professionals with nearly 3,000 members across the state. I had the pleasure of serving on the stakeholder work group as part of the strategic plan development. HB 619 presented this agency and our entire state with an unprecedented opportunity to develop a plan to improve the quality of the childcare workforce. It explicitly asks for recommendations to tackle many of the underlying challenges and for producing and maintaining a quality childcare workforce, including compensation and pay disparities. While the action items included in the strategic plan are needed, collectively, they are not sufficient to tackle compensation and pay disparities. And until we can sufficiently address these issues, the childcare workforce will continue to be undertrained and undereducated, and childcare programs will continue to struggle to recruit and retain qualified staff. With an unstable childcare workforce, the childcare industry will not remain viable. We respectfully ask the agency to include stakeholder recommendations regarding direct compensation supports for the childcare workforce and increasing state investments in our childcare system. These stakeholder recommendations, combined with the action items included in the proposed strategic plan, would collectively represent what is necessary to improve the quality of the childcare workforce. Unfortunately, the proposed strategic plan relies solely on federal funding through CCDBG allocations and anticipated preschool development grant birth to 5 funds. The strategic plan could include necessary recommendations for additional state investments which the legislature could act upon in their upcoming session. By not including these action items, which would require new state investments, the agency is sending a mixed signal to the legislature that current funding is adequate enough to address the quality of the childcare workforce. However, throughout the strategic plan, there are hints that the child care services program is not large enough to meaningfully make a difference on the entire childcare industry. Yet the plan does not clearly detail the level of funding that would be needed in order to make a meaningful difference. Data from a recent survey highlights that 50% of childcare providers in Texas will have to raise tuition, and 50% of childcare providers will have to cut wages once the childcare relief funds run out. And as the strategic plan points out, families cannot afford to pay more in tuition, and the workforce in childcare cannot afford to be paid any less. As a state, we must plan to sufficiently address the needs of our childcare workforce before the childcare relief funds run out, or we will accelerate the tailspin that the childcare industry and workforce has been in long before the pandemic and jeopardize our state's economy. Thank you.
Okay, for virtual commenters, when I call your name, if you could go ahead and unmute yourself, introduce your name and who you represent for the record, and proceed. Rosalind Cheney. Ms. Cheney? Okay, Bethany Edwards. Ms. Edwards? Tabitha Holmes. Ms. Holmes? Tim Kaminsky?
Hi, this is Bethany Edwards. Can you hear me?
Yes, Ms. Edwards, go ahead.
Okay, great. My name is Bethany Edwards, and I represent the Early Learning Alliance, a coalition of more than 50 organizations in Tarrant County that work together toward a common goal of our county being a place where every child has the foundation to succeed in school and in life. Our alliance is comprised of community-based early care providers, faith-based organizations, educators, school district administrators, training organizations, nonprofit service providers, health and mental health providers, private foundations, our local government officials, and more. As mentioned today, House Bill 619 of the 87th session was intended to address the market failure of the childcare system in the resulting childcare workforce crisis. Like others who testified today, I had the honor of participating in the stakeholder work group that provided robust recommendations to TWC regarding the strategic plan. Our cross-sector alliance here in Tarrant County was encouraged to know that the legislator and TWC were taking steps to address the broken childcare system, particularly the severe staffing shortages. And we had been eagerly awaiting TWC's recommendations. Like others testifying today, we encourage TWC to broaden the scope and recommendations proposed to meet the legislative intent of HB 619. Research, history, personal experience, and fundamental economics have taught us that a strategic plan void of strategies aimed at significantly increasing early educator compensation will not be sufficient to meet its goal of improving the quality of the childcare workforce in Texas. Thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Ms. Holmes? Mr. Kaminsky?
Hello,
Ms.
good-
McDon- Go ahead.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi, this is
Oh, Ms. Holmes.
Mrs. Holmes. Yes. Thank you, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Demerson. Thank you also to Mr. Cerna for your commitment to your service and for all that you do. I am Mrs. Holmes. I am the owner and director of Wise Academy for 26 years in the best of the Southwest in Cedar Hill, Texas. I currently serve as the president for Early Education Leaders Coalition, and I'm also a part of the advisory board for Arlington Child Care Regulations. TWC support through the Early Learning Division has literally been a lifeline for my program, as well as many other programs in our coalition and throughout the state. I want to impress upon you firsthand experience of what's going on out there, and we are boots on the ground. I was also a member of the work group for HB 619. I have seen so many hard times throughout the last 26 years, but the challenges that we are now facing are truly unprecedented. Within the industry, well known for its low pay and lack of benefits, it has always been hard to attract teachers, but somehow we are able to find those who are truly dedicated to the industry of having pure love and dedication to young children. However, once we receive those teachers and they understand what is expected of them within the classroom for the pay that they're receiving, it's a little difficult to retain them because they end up leaving and going to Walmart or Buc-ee's or even the district. Because of this, some of our classrooms are closed and our facilities and our enrollments are down. And I hear this story well across the state as I talk to other providers. The stakeholder report reflected research and strategic thinking and gave me hope, as does the narrative of Texas Workforce proposed childcare workforce strategy plan. However, the recommendations do fall short of what is needed and will not have the intended outcome of House Bill 619. Please do not miss the opportunity to make sure we can continue to support all of our parents who want and need to work. Please include the recommendations that would address our workforce crisis and engage other resources, agencies, and partners to retain a broken financial model. Finally, we remain committed to our children, our families, and our neighborhood employees. and to the state, and hope that we can all work together to ensure the childcare system that works so that our families can continue to work. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ms. Holmes. Ms. McDonald? Delia Merritt?
Hello.
Oh, Ms. McDonald,
Yes.
go ahead.
Hello. Hi. Thank you, commissioners, for having me here today. My name is Jerletha McDonald. I'm a National Family Child Care advocate and business consultant, and I'm also a former family child care professional myself. I'm the executive director of ADFW Family Child Care Network, and I also participate on the National Family Child Care panel with the Office of Child Care. I am here to provide comment on the HBC 1987 session mandated that TWC prepare a strategic plan for improving the quality of the infant, toddler, preschool, school age, and family child care programs. I also participated on the committee as well. The strategic plan must address the flawed financial mechanisms of the childcare system and those related to specifically to strengthening teacher compensation and also business supports. As you know, family childcare providers are small business owners, and we stood in the gap during COVID. Our doors remained open. We provide intimate care for families. And also, we also provide care for non-traditional hours, meaning the essential workers that were working during COVID, we made sure that they were taken care of. I'm here to say that I do appreciate the strategic plan, and but we still need to make sure it's strengthened to provide direct compensation supports, small business development supports for the not just the family child care providers who are operating in the state of Texas, but for all child care operations and educational supports. So please take into consideration when I myself and my colleagues are asking for this strategic plan. And thank you for having me today.
Thank you. Delia Merritt?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Delia Merritt, and I'm a child care director in Garland, Texas, that has been in business for over 45 years. I have been in this field for over 42 years myself and have seen many changes in the industry. I want to thank you for the time today and what Texas Workforce has already done for our industry. As the Vice President of Early Educators Leaders Coalition, we come together as leaders to help centers become higher quality. Beginning in this field for this many years, I have seen the workforce dwindle to a point of centers having to close because of not being able to find people who want to teach the youngest generation of our future leaders. Quality childcare is important for the future of our country. Finding people within the workforce who want to make a difference is very difficult. House Bill 619 is supposed to help those of us in this industry provide quality care. This can only happen if we can hire and retain quality staff. As a director, I don't need help with tracking the training. I need help with being able to pay the hardest working people in Texas what they deserve. As an adjunct professor at Collin College in Plano and Dallas College, I have seen a huge decrease in the amount of people taking early childhood education courses over the last 10 years. Classes are being canceled because there are not enough students, which causes students who are taking classes not to be able to finish their degrees in a timely manner. If we could help supplement paying our teachers who get a higher education, I feel this would help retain teachers in the early childhood field. When I talk to my 28 teachers about college education, they do not seem to feel that it is necessary to spend the amount of time it takes to get an education for the compensation that they will receive. When childcare centers cannot retain quality teachers, parents end up not being able to keep jobs because of the lack of centers that would put their children in. I know how many directors have centers and classrooms that are empty because they cannot hire teachers. At my center, we literally get 4 to 5 calls a day with parents crying, needing quality childcare and not being able to find a center they would put their child in. Again, I appreciate the work that you've already done for our industry, but I hope that as you build the strategies for House Bill 619, that you will take a hard look at how the workforce is the key, how we need help in providing quality care for our future. There are other directors speaking today who I personally know and who have sat at tables along with me with people in Texas workforce and in the state legislation on these topics. Please use our knowledge to help with what the need is to be able to provide quality childcare, to build a workforce that is professional and recognized as important. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And we're having some, working on some technical difficulties. So I'm going to go back to some other names previously mentioned. Ms. Cheney?
That was good. Amber said remind you, she has an appointment.
I can hear you. How about Ms. Holmes? Oh, she did. I'm sorry about that. Mr. Kaminsky.
Hello? Hello?
Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry about that. We were having trouble locating the mic. My name is Tim Kaminsky. I'm the director and owner of the Gingerbread Kids Academy in Fort Wayne County. Our family has owned and operated the Gingerbread Early Learning programs in Fort Wayne County for over 40 years. And I recently served on the HB 619 work group representing owners and operators in the ECE field in Texas. During COVID, more than half of the childcare centers in the state of Texas ended up closing. And although many of those have reopened, as you've heard from many of the speakers today, most of us are operating at less than our regular capacity. Prior to the pandemic, we served close to 500 families between 7 locations, and we had around 48 employees. 2.5 years later, we are only able to serve around 300 families, and we have 34 employees with 13 openings that we have been trying to fill since July. Without the TWC stabilization grants, we would not still be open today. So I'd like to thank on behalf of all of the providers that have received grants this past year. In the HB 619 work group, we made recommendations for wage supplements and other funding initiatives that would help us as employers be able to compete with other businesses that are offering higher wages. However, these recommendations did not make it in to the Child Care Workforce Strategy Plan. Although there are some commendable strategies listed in the plan, none of those recommendations provide me as an employer with a way to pay my employees higher wages. Even making funding increases to the broken subsidy program will not have an impact on improving wages for ECE teachers. In order to stabilize the ECE workforce and improve the quality of the ECE workforce, first, there must be a way for me to pay higher wages without having to increase my tuition rates. The strategic plan as it is currently written does not address that issue, which means the intent behind HB 619 has not been met, and a revised strategic plan needs to be developed that addresses the funds needed to have a direct impact or an immediate impact on stabilizing the child care workforce. Thank you.
Thank you. Diana Mazel?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for allowing me to speak this morning. My name is Diana Mazel, and I am a small business owner employing 20 early learning teachers. While the Child Care Relief Fund was greatly appreciated and benefited many centers from closure, including ours, how are we to maintain going forward with the current workforce and demands? The pandemic did shed light upon just how broken the childcare industry has been, especially if you accept the child care scholarship children. Our center, Kaleidoscope Child Development Center in Dallas, has been a CCS provider for 22 of our 29 years in a childcare desert. It was a choice for our business to give an opportunity for all children to have quality childcare in a 4-star TRS early learning program. It has come with many struggles and a deficit to our business. Most centers accepting the scholarship programs are small businesses like ours. We will not survive without cost of care for children of the scholarship program and/or additional funding. Without small centers like ours, there will not be centers for scholarship children, creating additional stress on families and employers. We currently have 3 families who have lost their care due to the recertification process. This creates additional burdens on families and children, and it also means that we have 5 children who depended upon us who cannot come to school. These children are taken to different family members daily, causing additional stress and burdens on their family. And this is where infant and toddler care will end up without additional funding or a restructure of the childcare system. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Michael Mazzell?
Hi, I'm Michael Mazzell. Thank you for your time. We've been in business for 29 years. I'm a co-owner of Kaleidoscope Child Development Center. We are in a childcare desert. Early learning is important. It is year-round. So is employment. Employment is year-round. Infant and toddler care is unsustainable as a standalone program. The current prices in the market do not cover the cost of $15 to $17 hour wages. To operate after grant funding expires would require a significant increase for early learning centers to survive. While we appreciate the child care relief funds that supported us as we recovered from the pandemic, 1/3 of early learning care centers have closed. As more centers have been affected by free pre-K this fall, early learning centers are in jeopardy of closure. The ISDs aren't interested in partnering for the pre-K slots financially. They'll let us give them free space, but that's all they want. Pre-K has also kept all of us afloat and let us be able to provide care for infants and toddlers. That helped us offset the cost. And pre-K is essential for us to survive. TWC has the structure of Rising Star and the slots for pre-K. Please create an early learning department to put all early learning funds in one department so we can survive. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Rosalind Cheney?
Yes, thank you all for giving me so much patience with this technical difficulty. Greetings, everyone. Thank you all for having me here. I'm speaking on the HB 6192, and I am Rosalind Cheney. I am a 24/7 childcare provider in Grand Prairie, Texas, family home childcare. I am really focusing on the early childhood education because we focus on the academic and social and cognitive skills that's developing children from birth to preschool. We are trying to be able to sustain high quality childcare, but at the same time, we need to get high quality pay. Early childhood education and its high quality providers, we need to sustain them to actually be on the same leveling with the ISD. As the previous gentleman said, we are losing kids through the pre-K program, but we have early childhood educators that's qualified to advance their education as getting teacher alternative certifications. And I do appreciate that the kids with the CDA program partnership with the childcare, that's a plus also. But if we are able to sustain and grow as early child quality providers, I'm a Texas Rising Star 4-star, and I've been in Texas Rising Star for 5 years now. And we just got to keep in mind that our communities would change for the better tremendously if we are able to sustain quality care and quality pay. I want to be on, it's going to be a domino effect, positive or negative. But we as providers want to be on that positive side of that domino effect. We want to be that source, just like a river flows and don't ever forget its source. Early childhood education is the source, the epitome to education. We provide all the social skills that's needed in order for the kids to develop as needed to attend the ISDs. So I think that we should be recognized as such. Thank you all.
Thank you. Brenda Pace.
Good morning, Chairman Daniels, Commissioner Demerson, and Mr. Cerna. My name is Brenda Pace. I am the director and owner of Pace and Ross Learning Center in Dallas, Texas. Our center has created and supported high-quality learning environments that engage the minds of young children from birth to age 5 and continue to age 12 in the community for 29 years. I am a proud member of the Early Education Leaders Coalition, as many of my colleagues have previously spoken. I am an important community entity. I am a small childcare business owner and provider that has a big impact in the Oak Cliff area of Dallas, along with the other childcare associates throughout Texas. Our roles are essential because we impact the future. I want to thank you for your support in the childcare industry. The childcare relief fundings and the additional fundings provided are appreciated and most needed. We have benefited that we were able to get more PPE equipment, staff bonuses, and stipends, and much needed repairs and upgrades during the pandemic. My concern, just like the other colleagues, is stability, quality care, and quality pay. I'm concerned about after the child care relief funding is depleted. And I'm asking for my recommendations is wage stabilization to increase the reimbursement rate to be sustainable to the true cost of care, and furthermore, to maintain a living wage for our staff. With resource, the median wage for our Texas childcare teachers is $12.53. Childcare teachers earn in the bottom 3 to 5% of the national wage scales. And this has been going on for over 25 years. Because of this deficit, just like everybody says, we have lost our qualified, trained teachers to high wages other than the childcare industry. And I personally have lost teachers because they love what they're doing, but they can't pay their bills. Many of them are working at FedEx, Buc-ee's, even Quick Trip, because they pay higher wages. Because of this, our childcare industry have lost the opportunity to instill the wisdom, the patience, and the knowledge, and above all, the love of the craft and the talent for our future. This is all about our future. And this also results in a high level of turnover. I hope that the agencies incorporate the recommendations that are meaningful to address the critical and urgent needs of the childcare system and those related to the significant increasing teacher compensations. Thank you for your time and to listen to my recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Cassie Willis?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Cassie Willis. I am in Garland, Texas with Willis Early Learning Center, and I want to thank you for your time this morning. I had the pleasure of speaking to you last year as well. Through this year, we have been so blessed with what you guys have helped us with, but we see so much going on in our community that we're still struggling. Our area is not a lower income area as it would be put on paper because we have choice of school, but our area is a lower income area. Myself and as well as my colleagues that have been speaking, we don't get all the extra grants and all the extra fluff all the time that comes with it. Our families struggle. We have some parents, I would say 75% of my parents are teachers in the district. Only about 25% of those will qualify for CCA or child care assistance. They are struggling to pay their bills. We have kids that leave us daily. Unfortunately, if they can't pay their bills, we have had to carry the load with the grant that you gave us. Has been such a blessing that we've been able to carry them for a little bit longer. But when that runs out, I won't have it to be able to pay my teachers. We have been struggling with our classroom numbers due to our city does not have a partnership with pre-K. We have our teachers trained. All of my staff either has a degree or is working on a degree for early education. That is something that we are very proud of. We are a 4-star center. We are nationally accredited. We work really hard day to day. We want to make sure that early education is noticed. We want to make sure that you see that we are working for these little ones to make a difference. We do not want to continue with the things that we see in society with children in the school districts. We are very blessed that we do have a lot of school teachers in our building. They tell us the struggles that are in the school system. So we are trying to start at the early age and fix that. We take it on as such, just an honor that these teachers can go get free services from the district, but instead they choose to continually stay with us because they know that our teachers are trained for early education. So we are wanting to just kind of vocalize the fact that we need to have better partnerships with the district. We agree, but we also don't need the district taking children when they're not ready for them, when they don't have classrooms that are set up, when their teachers that they have are not prepared to deal with younger education. So I thank you for your time and thanks for listening and for hearing the heart of a mother and as a childcare provider. Thank you.
Thank you. Cynthia Pearson?
Good morning. Am I heard?
Yes, good morning.
All right, thank you. Well, good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Demerson, and Mr. Cerna. We're certainly missing the face of Commissioner Alvarez today, as he was a true advocate for the early childhood field. I've heard where you stand on the issue too, Commissioner Demerson and Mr. Cerna, when you have visited Abilene, and your firsthand use of childcare in Texas for your own families. We as a child care provider are grateful for the child care relief funding and the stabilization grants we've received over the past 2 years. I am Cynthia Pearson with Day Nursery of Abilene, and we are in what's considered rural West Central Texas in Abilene. And our agency, Day Nursery of Abilene, has been in business for almost 50 years. I appreciated the opportunity to serve on the strategic planning work group for the early childhood workforce, along with several dozen other colleagues in the state who have committed their lives and careers to this crucial field. We are grateful to our legislators for passing H. Bill 619 in the 87th legislative session that mandated TWC prepare a strategic plan for improving the quality of infant, toddler, preschool, and school age childcare workforce in the state. That is what our group set out to do. In my agency and business, we also develop our own strategic plan, and we ask 4 questions when we do that. 1 is what is right, 1, what's wrong, what's confusing, and what's missing. I think our work group identified all of those things and did a very good job at outlining some strong possibilities for impacting positively the workforce in Texas for childcare. The recommendations that we see presented don't really do that. Although I do appreciate some of the recommendations in the plan, they don't provide strategies nor resources to incentivize and compensate the industry for childcare and the staff that are needed to do this important work. Most importantly, I don't see the support for the current early childhood education workforce. That's what's missing. Teacher compensation benefits need specific plans, which we identified. We do appreciate some of the long-term recommendations to support the pipeline in the future. Those things are very important, as well as to support the industry long-term, but we need some more short-term solutions. As a child care provider, we have a history of receiving phone calls from desperate parents in need of child care every day. They need and have a desire to work or return to work, but they cannot do so without safe educational spaces for their infants, toddlers, and preschool age children. We are now getting those phone calls from business leaders in our community and owners of major businesses in our city, such as from the president of the largest banking institution in our state and country, school districts, hospitals, city leaders who cannot attract employees because of the childcare deficits. Deficits in the childcare workforce equal to deficits in economic development in every city and our state as a whole. And it's not stopping there. Several other groups in our city have an increased interest in the childcare crisis just because of what is going on, including there's being an in-depth study which has been commissioned by community leadership. This is a real issue that we must continue to address. It is our hope that by hearing us today that TWC will broaden the scope of the strategic plan to incorporate some of those suggestions that we made. During the pandemic, we gained some momentum and interest, which needs to continue in order to strengthen the early childhood education workforce in Texas. Thank you for hearing us today, for the continued support of the early childhood industry, which supports a strong Texas. Wishing you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you. Are there any others on the line that have not yet been called? Commissioners, I think that's it.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Demerson. Any questions or comments for staff?
Yes, first of all, let me say thank you for all you do. Those that presented today, those that are online, appreciate everything that you do in that space. You know, I have two boys that Ms. Pearson had mentioned that very successful boys that are young men right now who got their start in the child care system and with a very talented, loyal, and dedicated staff at that point. So a couple of things here. Seems like a lot of the comments are coming from the work group members. And there's an organization, I guess, the Prenatal 3 Policy Impact Center. Are they here today? Yeah.
They partnered with UT and the LBJ school. It's an academic entity that helped us develop.
Are they here today?
They are not here today.
So this seems to deal with the process for me, a process. It sounds like there are a lot of upfront expectations. Most of our members, so we have a strat plan that's been delivered, but most of the members that are talking about it were on that work group and they were part of developing the strat plan. And so it seems like there's a disconnect in regards to a shocked nature, in the sense that there's a report and we're hearing all these comments right now. And so I don't know if the report was issued on Friday or the recommendations that were put forward were not communicated. I'm not sure. There's just a disconnect for me right now in terms of a process that's taking place, because there's a strat plan with the majority of the members, the work group members, very supportive of our efforts. They're very supportive of what we've done, but this strat plan seems to be missing the mark in their mind. And so from a standpoint of setting expectations and upfront expectations in regards to either what we're going to do as an agency or where we're planning to go, seems like we have a disconnect there. It sounds like there's a lot of talk on teacher compensation, wages along those lines, and I feel that that's not being addressed. Eliminating the pay disparities or improving the infant, toddler, childcare workforce. Those are some of the things that that were coming out as well. And so I want to make sure that we are being respectful of what's being requested in House Bill 619. And if we can answer that we are addressing those needs, then that's one thing. We're okay in that regard. But if we are not able to either answer that, or we want to further discuss this or look into this, I think it's probably warranted based on all of the input that I'm hearing, where you have a number of the members of the workforce group. It just seems like we have two ships passing in the night. We're not connecting in a sense, and that concerns me. Those are my comments.
Are you interested in trying to reconcile that and have staff bring this back at a later date? You want to do it today? I think there's probably some information that can be gathered. How are you thinking we might proceed on this?
Yes, I definitely would like us to, if we have the opportunity to gather additional information. Ed, you and the team you've heard the comments, and like, I think it's important that we listen to those comments. And again, if we come back and we're satisfied with what we have as a report, we'll know that. But I definitely would like us to weigh in on those comments, especially with the fact that most of those members were part of a work group. That just concerns me, that they're part of the work group and the recommendations. And they're not that they have to be, but I would be curious as to this prenatal 3 policy impact center or whatever group that helped us with this process, what they were doing in that regard. So, Mr. Chairman, yeah, in terms of pushing it down to allow staff to further look into some of the comments and observations that have been raised, I would love for us to do that.
I mean, I think that's a fair request. So the bill that was passed required that we complete and send a report to the speaker, the lieutenant governor, and the governor before December 31st of this year. I'm quite certain the bill sponsor, the original House bill sponsor, would probably entertain a request to maybe delay that. We'd have to have it done, I think, before January 10th, I would say, when the legislature convenes, to really kind of comply with the spirit of the law. I'm perfectly willing to let us gather more information and come back the first week of January, the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th, take this back up in an open meeting and finalize it at that point. And I think in doing that, I would ask Mr. Cerna to ask our government relations staff to communicate that to the bill sponsor, that's what we're doing, so that we can address some specific concerns that were raised today. And I think I know this person to be very reasonable, and will definitely listen to our requests. So if that works for you, I think we can take that up and find out some of the answers to the questions and get whatever revisions staff feels like needs to be made to the report, so that we can consider it the first week of January.
That sounds good to me. I think we'll look at the calendars and make sure that we're lined up, because I'm not sure if we had meetings set that day or not having meetings set. So we'll need to do that. And if that clears, checks, we're good to go.
We have time to set a meeting.
Okay. And that's fine. It's just our regular Tuesday meeting. I'm not sure if we had a meeting.
Well,
set for
so
that
we
Tuesday.
didn't schedule one for the 3rd, but we can easily do that, and we have time to do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I mean. We have
Perfectly
time
willing
to
do
post
that.
for one
Yeah.
that first week in January.
Yeah, that's what I meant by going back and looking at the calendars, because I'm hearing it right now. And so I need to go back to make sure that we're solid on that.
Well, let's
I
do
definitely
that.
wanna do it.
And if you think you have any availability at all, that we don't have to meet on Tuesday. If we want to meet another day, another time, we can certainly do that
Okay,
too.
all right,
Whatever
that's
may
fair.
be going on with your schedule.
That's fair. Thank you.
All right, any further comments?
Not for me.
Well, I think if we're going to take this up later, I'll reserve all my comments for then. One of my questions did have to do with both pay disparity and a couple other things that I think we probably actually have the answers to. And it really looked like they were missing, because we think we already have the answers to those. And so I think probably that's some writing where we can just clarify some things that we thought we were saying that people didn't read it that way. So
Yes.
most of my questions kind of dealt around that. I think I'll just bring those up the week of the 3rd or whatever week that is, the week of the 2nd. And we'll just take it up then.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Allison.
All right. All right, so we will table this for further consideration at a meeting for the first week of January.
Thank you.
Let's move then to agenda item 8, board contract year 2023 supplemental funds for Texas Rising Star Assessment.
Okay, again, for the record, Allison Wilson with the Child Care and Early Learning Division. The 87th Texas Legislature enacted House Bill 1792, which directs TWC to procure a single entity to oversee all Texas Rising Star assessors. TWC is currently in the procurement process with a goal of a single entity being selected in the spring of 2023 and under contract in May of 2023. Additional funding is needed to support the cost for boards to oversee and support Texas Rising Star assessments for a portion of board contract year 2023 from October of 2022 through August of 2023, as well as to support the costs for the new centralized entity during the transition period. As described in the discussion paper, the commission previously approved $5.9 million for assessor funding. Based on the new timeline and a new estimated fiscal year 23 cost of $7.9 million, an additional $2 million is needed. Staff recommends that the commission approve an additional $2 million to support Texas Rising Star assessor services in board contract year 23 for boards and in fiscal year 23 for the new centralized assessor entity. And that concludes my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions?
None here.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve an additional $2 million to support Texas Rising Star assessor services in board contract year 2023 for boards and in fiscal year 2023 for the new centralized assessor entity.
I'll second the motion. It's approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. So agenda item 9, 2022 TWC annual report and supplemental annual report.
On purpose.
Sorry, I'm sitting rather low in this chair, so let me know if you can't hear me over. There we go. Good morning, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Demerson, and Mr. Cerna. For the record, I'm Mary York, Director of Outreach and Employer Initiatives. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment to introduce Erin Duffner, seated beside me, our new Director of Strategic Communications, who is here to help present this agenda item. And I would like to thank her and her team and all the TWC staff who contributed to these reports. Commissioners, before you today for consideration are the 2022 TWC annual and supplemental reports. The annual report has been compiled in compliance with Texas Labor Code sections 301.065, 301.156, and 301.157 for submission to the governor and Texas legislature pending commission approval. For the record, there is one change that I would like to note. On page 3 of the annual report, table CRD1, the total field for the total number of females should read 51,346 instead of 513,646. Also, should any other typographical or non-substantive changes be needed during the final design of the document, I would ask that the commission allows staff to make those prior to submission. Also before you is TWC's supplemental report for fiscal year 2022, compiled in accordance with Texas Labor Code section 301.065 .065, which requires TWC to submit a separate supplemental annual report consisting of any information required by other law to be included in the supplemental annual report. The report contains annual information for the following programs: College Credit for Heroes, Skills Development Fund, Trade Adjustment Assistance, and Works Wonders, Texas Purchasing from People with Disabilities, which are all required under the law. Lastly, prior versions of these reports have included either combined or separate messages from TWC. The posted version of the annual report does not currently include any commissioner messages. And I do have some copies of what has been shared with us for your consideration. Aaron can distribute those to you now. And we would seek the commission's direction on how to proceed with these messages and the combined introduction to the supplemental report. So that concludes my presentation. Staff are available from all included programs to answer any questions you may have regarding either of these reports.
Commissioner Jefferson, comments or questions?
Yeah, so the annual report commissioners messages that Aaron, of that namesake, that Aaron passed out, where were these included? Were they on both reports or just one of the reports?
Last year, we had separate messages from each one of the commissioners preceding the annual report.
Annual report.
Mhm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so on my only comments to this, I just kind of wanted to lay this out and see the best way that you might want to proceed. So, you know, we had arrived at this place where each commissioner included a message, which I thought was good. And the messages were good. Last year's report, the messages were good, if I do say so myself, since one of them was mine. But I thought we kind of laid out some priorities for the agency, some kudos for the agency. I think all those were appropriate. So I was thinking about this report and I was watching it be developed, and then staff briefed me on it. And it occurred to me that much of this report was prepared while Commissioner Alvarez was still in office. And his departure creates sort of a stylistic question for me. While it is true that he was a commissioner through fiscal 22, to issue the report with his message, which I haven't seen, I just saw it, as a commissioner message, I think is not probably aligned with the typical protocol that we would see at an agency in terms of when a commissioner leaves. I looked at some other agencies and their annual report, particularly when I knew that they had a vacancy in the commissioner's spot, and they just simply didn't include them in the list of commissioners, which I don't want to do here either. So I got thinking about how could we include some recognition of the work that Commissioner Alvarez did while he was here at TWC, in light of the fact that he's moved on to a new adventure. I thought of a couple options, wanted to float those by you. Whatever conclusion we kind of arrive at today, you know, I think is probably where we are, and we can finalize this. Couple of other options, rather than list 3 commissioners, one of whom is no longer a commissioner. I think there's some protocol issues with that. I have no interest in eliminating his message from the report. I don't think that's appropriate either. So the 2 compromise positions that I could think of were to combine our messages into one message, just a commissioner's message where we could highlight the work and recognize the work that Commissioner Alvarez did while he was here with TWC. Or alternatively, we could just include an executive director message, ask Mr. Cerna to include elements from all of our different commissioners' messages that we proposed, also asking him to highlight the contributions that Commissioner Alvarez made while he was here. He had a long tenure here at TWC, and I think it deserves some recognition. So I'm actually at a little bit of a quandary here. I think it's not necessarily, you know, a violation of law or anything like that, that you would include someone's message who's no longer a commissioner, but I haven't seen that done at another agency. And I think there's a couple of other mechanisms we can use to ensure that his work gets recognized, in addition to the things that we think are important. And want to highlight on behalf of the agency. So let me give that to you for your consideration. Hear your thoughts. I did not submit my message, although I've been working on it because I've been trying to figure out kind of the best way that I would want to move forward. And the only way we can really talk about this is an open meeting here today. So we're going to talk about it in open.
Yeah, I'm fine with, I think, combining the messages and then mentioning Commissioner Alvarez and then moving on from that point. We actually, the team, because the OEI team was pushing our team to get a message done, and they were pushing us pretty hard to get a message done, and we did. And so if I'm not using that document here, I'll probably use it doing some other things. And so from that point, but so I'm fine. If I think this thing came about, Ed, as a result of one time we couldn't get it done or whatever. So we said we're going to go with 3 commissioner messages from that point. And that's how we got here. With 3 messages. And so,
Yeah, yes, sir. We couldn't get to a combined message.
okay, bringing it back to a semi, combined with some other things, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, so I would move that we approve the report and ask staff to make revisions to the opening message, making it a combined message, and then submit that back to us for approval. Since we're coming back for the childcare report, we can either approve it there or we can just rely on staff to prepare a message. I'm comfortable with staff preparing the message. I don't need to approve it again once they do that. It depends on how you feel about it, kind of what I'm about to move here.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. They can do that. Just run it by my office. Definitely want to see it. And so I'm fine with the second.
All right. I move that we adopt the 2 reports, that staff combine the messages into one message. And that upon when that message is completed, then the report's final and we can move it up.
Chairman, can I ask a point of clarification before you take your vote? On the supplemental report, there's currently an introduction. And the way we had posted it and the way it had been prepared prior to Commissioner Alvarez's departure is it would have included his signature. With this action, am I removing his signature based on the fact that we would no longer be using that there?
Well, unfortunately, based on the protocol that I've seen, I'm afraid so. I've just
Okay.
seen what other agencies have done, and I assume we would sort of stick with that protocol.
Okay. Thank you for the
Yeah. clarification.
And then also, again, one more point of clarification in your motion, are you going to allow for non-substantive corrections to be made?
Yes.
Grammar, punctuation, things like that
Yes,
in the final report?
yes,
Okay, thank you.
Fine. I'm good. Yeah.
with no objection. That's what we've approved. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. So agenda item 10, childcare match.
Good morning, Chair Daniel, Commissioner Demerson, Mr. Cerna. For the record, Sandra Williams, Workforce Development Division. The Texas Workforce Commission allocates federal funding for childcare services from the Child Care and Development Fund to local workforce development areas. For a portion of the CCDF funding, local workforce development boards are required to secure and submit local matching funds to TWC in accordance with federal regulations. TWC Chapter 809 Child Care Service Rules and TWC 800 General Administration Rules. Boards submit annual local match pledges from private and public entities to secure these funds pursuant to Section 809.17 and to maximize resources needed in their communities. The supporting documentation includes 46 board contract year 23 match agreements from 8 boards. Those boards are Cameron, Central Texas, Coastal Bend, Greater Dallas, Gulf Coast, Lower Rio Grande, Permian Basin, and South Texas. The boards have currently secured 42.32% of the required statewide match for BCY 23, with 5 boards securing at least 50% of their target and 4 boards securing 100% of their target. The amount currently secured is $13,848,008. Staff recommends accepting these childcare pledges for donations, transfers, and certifications of expenses for BCY 23 in the amount of $13,848.08.
Any comments or questions?
No
Is
comments.
there a motion?
I move that we approve the acceptance of child care pledges for donations, transfers, and certifications of expense for the board contract year 2023 in the amount of $13,848,008 as recommended today by staff.
Yeah, I second it and it's approved.
Thank you, sir.
This is agenda item 12, board nominations.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioner, Mr. Steiner. Excuse me. For the record, Cherie Dudley with Workforce Development. Today for your consideration, we have workforce board nominations for Cameron County, East Texas, Golden Crescent, and Northeast Texas. Staff recommends approval on the presented nominees, and I'm here to answer questions you may have.
Any comments or questions?
There was one person from Workforce Solutions, East Texas. I can't remember that name right off the top of my head, but we're fine. I'm good.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the local workforce development board member and nominees presented today for the following workforce solutions teams: Cameron County, East Texas, Golden Crescent, and Northeast Texas.
I second the motion. It's approved.
Thank you.
Is there an executive director's report to do?
No, sir, other than to wish the two of you and the staff of TWC happy holidays.
Thank you very much. Any other order of business come before the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I kind of misspoke when I talked about the workforce solutions of East Texas. It was Mr. Donovan Huff from Golden Crescent that I was referencing, but we're good. Good.
All good?
Okay.
All right. Any other comments?
Not for me.
All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move that we adjourn.
And I second the motion to adjourn and we're adjourned. Thank you.